What up, perps? Kid Copious back in effect. Purple State Party. You know what we're doing here? We're repping America, the center, and common sense. Well, this week's episode is going to be a little bit different, a little less political. In fact, I'm going to keep the political talk to like a minimum. So let's get this thing started. You know, for 7 years now, going on 8 years, or maybe it's 8 years going on 9 years. I can't do math. But anyhow, I've been doing this show for quite a while now. I used to do it as a video on YouTube. And recently I've switched over to the podcast here. I've done about a year of the podcast. This is episode 57, 52 weeks in a year. You do the computations on that. But I never really wanted this to be about researching news articles and then giving an opinion about news articles. I didn't want that to be the focus. Purple State Party is almost more of a political philosophy podcast about trying to get people to get away from the tribes. I mean, if you look over at the Middle East, places like Iraq, Afghanistan, places like that, you'll see that politics are ruled by tribal allegiances. And that's what we're starting to get here. I dare say we've already reached that. Where you're either a Democrat or a Republican, you just vote that way, blah. That's it. There is no assessing a candidate. So anyhow, I was collecting articles, going through what I was going to do for this show, and the Republicans in Kansas have rescinded the transgender designation on licenses, meaning that a lot of people in Kansas don't have licenses. I don't know how many people in Kansas had those types of licenses. I would guess that if you were trans in Kansas, you'd get the F out. Another illegal alien who shouldn't be here and who should have been deported, who was released by Biden, murdered somebody. The war in Iran is still going on. We really don't know where that's going. Trump keeps us on our toes. But as I'm looking through these articles I've collected, I've noticed that I had a collection of non-political articles. And I thought to myself, that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about humans. I want to talk about the things that we all have in common, no matter what tribe you come from, what nationality, sexual orientation, religion, all of that. Some of the things that we have in common. Just being human. And, I wanted some good examples, some bad examples, but I just didn't want to talk about politics this week. So let's get it started here. We're going to start with this Nicolette Keough of Pensacola, Florida. She's 41 years old, and she was arrested on a criminal mischief complaint. Well, this chick, she did it all. This is so Florida 2026. She was accused of peeing on and damaging more than $3,000 worth of property in multiple Airbnbs. This is according to the arrest report from the Pensacola Police, the PPD. The PP. That's ironic. But anyhow, this Airbnb owner detected the scent of urine in one of his rental properties, and I guess he tracked this chick down to OnlyFans, where she was making money peeing on stuff. I mean, she peed on a lot of stuff. Some of the highlights was an antique rug, an antique chair, a rug, 4 dining room chairs, a coffee maker, the bed, the TV, a record player, a toaster, an electric fireplace, and most amusing of all, she peed on a typewriter. Doesn't that say a lot about where we're at now? Where there's a website where you could pay to get a girl to pee on a typewriter. I wonder how many people out there now even know what a typewriter is or have used a typewriter. I found my old typewriter when my daughter was young, and I let her use it just to see what that experience was like, because we've come so far. When I first started writing, I did all my writing on a typewriter, and boy, it was so hard to correct stuff. It was so hard to edit stuff. I still remember when my family got their first computer. I believe that was like, I don't know, sometime in the early 89, early 90s, something like that. Fant 2040 was my first screen name. Phantom 2040 was the cartoon. I urge you to look it up. You know, that's how I grew up. Every time I came across something I didn't know, I would look it up. And I think nowadays, man, wow, I'd be so smart. I'd know so much trivia. But anyhow, yeah, Florida woman, Airbnb, OnlyFans. Tie it together with a little P, and you got yourself a story. It's just an amazing what society we've built here. So, a little closer to home here in Los Angeles at Olvera Street, a family that's been operating a photo booth for 60 years is being told to move. And now this has nothing to do with the politics of LA, which are effed up, but you can see it in the thumbnail. I got the donkey there. He's a serape wearing donkey. Olvera Street was very interesting. It was a place where we went as school children to sort of be a little bit immersed in the south of the border culture. I'm not one of those people who worries about the whole idea of stolen land. Whoever says that it was stolen from them probably stole it from somebody else. So let's move on from that particular aspect. Southern California in particular, really all of California, has a lot of Mexican culture to it. Thank God, because their food is the best. Yeah, it is. But anyhow, so what happened here was the guy that owns it right now, Richard Hernandez, his mom was running the stand in LA's historic Mexican marketplace for more than 60 years. But when she died in 2024, he discovered his name was not added to the vendor lease. And he received an eviction letter and has been fighting it ever since. And what's strange about it, well, I mean, the reason why I bring up this article is that it just kind of shows you how the way these leases work. He wasn't on the lease, so he lost his lease. Now it has to go to a bidding process. A judge has recently ruled that he can be evicted. People are up in arms about it because it was kind of part of, something that's been there for 60 years. But I see this in my job as a fire alarm inspector. Malls, strip malls, places like that, they get these huge offers from corporations to take over the spot. And it's usually a beloved or important or, something that the community loves. I know of a couple cases where sporting goods stores were removed because, In-N-Out wanted the spot and was willing to pay for it. I have a client at a mall, and they had to move because a larger company just handed over cash to have the lease. You can't really blame people for taking the higher cash offer, but at the same time, it is eroding our society. And I see that a lot with just the fact that so many of the good, fun jobs have now just disappeared because those types of retailers are just online. And it's not leaving anything behind. And it's really, it's the evolution of business in America. I don't think there's anything that can be done to stop it. I don't think anybody really should stop it. But at the same time, I think there should be some carve-outs, And this Burro at Olvera Street is one of those where maybe some rules could be bent to keep tradition alive. Because that's, I believe, one of the things that we're losing the most of here in the United States and probably around the world is tradition. Traditions are the things that bind us together as a culture. And when those things get eroded, we see the fracturing of communities. Anyhow, I don't know. Just thought that was interesting. I remember the Burro. Thought I'd talk about it. You can look it up more. It's LA Times has the article. Yeah. Anyhow. So way back in 1993, I started watching soccer. At the time, it really wasn't on American television. And I had to watch it on Spanish television, mostly Italian Serie A. And over the decades that have passed, I started to realize how much I love that sport because I'll get up so early in the morning, 2:30 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, to watch a game. You know, watch a World Cup game, watch World Cup like Uruguay, Germany, two teams I don't really care about. But today, there's two games on. Arsenal versus Tottenham. If you don't know, over in England, there are a lot of teams in London. Tottenham is 4.5 miles from Arsenal's home stadium of the Emirates. That's a rivalry. But what makes it so special today is that both of the games are going to be on television, and both of them are women's soccer. In England, it's the WSL. Here, it's the NWSL. Portland Thorns are playing today at 1. And I mean, the other day, I watched Arsenal take on Chelsea. Again, Chelsea is another London team. And after the game, they interviewed coaches, they interviewed players. They had all of the hallmarks of American sports presentation. You know, the things that I would see with football are the same things I'm seeing with women's soccer now. And it's amazing. And the growth over there is just amazing. I mean, for example, right now, Arsenal, the ladies of Arsenal, are averaging 35,000 fans per game. You know, the WNBA here in America, 11,000. They've really embraced it over there. And as I was going through this, trying to figure out just where, you know, what I wanted to talk about and all of that, I knew one thing is that I'm proud to be a diehard fan of women's soccer. It's amazing to see the growth. It's amazing to have lived the life that I have lived so far and to see the kinds of positive changes that have been made in women's sports and in human rights for people who might be a little bit different. I come from a day where I was harassed by the police for wearing a bandana or having an earring. And now that's no longer a thing. You know, people with colored hair here in California don't get singled out. You know, maybe my life would have been better if I'd grown up now. I don't know. But to see women's soccer selling out giant stadiums, it's just amazing. But while I was looking through this, I came across something that came out in 2024. The Arsenal at the time set the new WSL record at a little over 60,000 people. It was a game versus Manchester United. Boo. But when they were talking about the coach of the Arsenal at the time, who's now, I believe, the coach for the San Diego Wave, he was interviewed after the game, and he said, I was thinking about a quote from Dennis Bergkamp. Dennis Bergkamp is an Arsenal legend on the men's team. When he said, you don't support a team only for a player, or only for history, or only for trophies. You go and support a team because that's where you found an environment where you think you belong. And that's what I'm seeing in women's soccer. When I look out at packed stadiums, Portland, Arsenal, I see the people who you don't normally see in the stands at a sporting event. I see kids. I see women. I see people of kind of, what can you say, alternative lifestyle. They found a community there in women's soccer. And I think that's just beautiful. That's why I share it. I mean, if you like soccer, but you haven't given the women the chance, give the women a chance. I mean, last week, Arsenal's game against Chelsea, I saw one of the players was laying down, I think it was Woo and Moy. She was laying down, and she managed to kick the ball forward. A beautiful pass. Russo buries it. Chloe Kelly takes a long, just massively hard strike that goes in the net. Chelsea scored. I believe it was Olivia Smith. Just kind of lobbed one in and then caught the goalie off her line. It's just amazing. It's as good as the men. It's the same as the men. And I'm glad we're moving to that point. But at the same time, as we move forward in positive ways, we are moving forward with a lot of negative ways too. But we're not going to talk about that. We're trying to keep it a little bit more upbeat right here. So one of the things that I like in life is I'm very much about archaeology. I love the study of the past. And up front, I don't want to hear any ancient alien crap. Okay, aliens didn't come here. Man did it. This is important. Stonehenge is one of those things. A chemical fingerprint taken of Stonehenge's altar stone reveals it isn't from Wales, as previously understood. In fact, it came from about 466 miles away in the Orcadian Basin in Scotland. Look at a map of the UK, and you'll see Scotland way in the north there. 466 miles. That's that's a little less than the distance from San Diego to San Francisco. Okay? That's a massive distance. And it shows that these people were involved with some sort of trade that involved using the ocean, using ships, long before we really thought they did. And we've gotten to this point now where we could take this thick 6-ton, this stone weighs 6 tons, and they moved it that whole distance. But we can go through that, and we can find chemical fingerprints of the composition of a rock. Because a lot of people don't understand that even though this is a sandstone block, it's going to have other elements in it. And by comparing those elements to other samples from around the world, you can figure out where things are. I watch a show, Curse of Oak Island, which is, they really should remove the curse. And they're able to take lead and figure out where that lead came from based on, and when, based on what's in it. The chemical composition of these things tells, it's like a fingerprint, like they say, it's a fingerprint. It's just so fascinating that we've gotten to this point, but somehow they got this giant 6-ton slab of rock from way up in the north all the way down to the south. Like they say, this one of the guys who co-authored it, Chris Kirkland, transporting such massive cargo overland from Scotland to southern England would have been extremely challenging, indicating a likely marine shipping route along the coast of Britain. This implies long-distance trade networks and a high level of societal organization that is widely understood to have existed in the Neolithic period in Britain. Humans are incredible. And the reason why I think it fits here is right now we live in an era of being manipulated. Social media, the government, the politicians, the media corporations, they're all manipulating us into these little boxes. But we can move a 6-ton stone almost 500 miles. We could build the pyramids. We could build the pyramids in Egypt. We could build the pyramids in Mexico. We can do those things. We could put a railroad line all the way across America. We could dig a canal across Panama. We could build the Great Wall of China. So we have it in us to overcome giant obstacles. Whether it's personal or political, we could overcome these things. So down in Colombia, South America, they found these human remains that are about 6,000 years old. And they don't match any of the DNA that connects them to ancient or modern populations in South America. They think it might be related to the speakers of this language called Chibchan, but they're not really sure. It's not matching up. And what was interesting in finding this article is that one of the problems that modern scientists face is that our Native American population doesn't really like to give up DNA samples. It's just their thing. But it also, through that and through some other archaeological finds, they're starting to realize that America was settled from people who originated out of Siberia. There was a long-held belief that people started maybe in France, the so-called Clovis people. The Clovis people are what we know as probably the first people to land in the Americas. And we thought they came from France, migrated eastward, merged with different populations in Asia and along the way, and then Northeast Asia, Siberia, Russia, came across the Siberian ice bridge. But now we're finding that, it was more like Siberia and Eastern Asian groups that came across, they mixed and came across to America sometime about 16,000 years ago. It's always weird because you have the biblical scholars who think that the world's about 6,000 years old, and then you have evidence of this. It's a fascinating study overall, though. That people, where people came from to America. The fact that a lot of the native populations do have sort of obvious, to me, ties to Asia in their facial features. But the fact that they're able to piece this stuff together, that they could take DNA from bone fragments and sequence it. This was one, the Anzac child, and they extracted the DNA and they compared it to 143 modern non-African populations, including 52 Native American ones. Out of those 52, 45 came from Central and South America, because like I said, a lot of the Native Americans in the United States don't really want to give this up. But they compared this genome that they found with those of a Siberian boy that was about 24,000 years old, a Paleo Eskimo from Greenland that was about 4,000 years old, and they figured out that the original people here came from Siberia. The fact that we can do that nowadays, it's just amazing. I mean, we could take a bone that's 24,000 years old, extract a sequence from it, and then match that sequence to other things and figure out where these people came from. It's just amazing. It just shows you, again, how much humans can actually, achieve. A report came out that in Colorado, about half of the gray wolves that were released into Colorado since 2023 have died. Some of them had to be killed because they attacked livestock. Others actually died when they were tranquilized to have their collars changed. But as somebody who knows wildlife, I find it amazing that we're reintroducing something as dangerous as gray wolves. That's kind of what this is about. I mean, I'm fine with wolves. Like, cool. As long as you're like way, way away from civilization, because one of the problems that I've seen here, really, especially in California, is we get this idea that we want to save the coyotes, for example. Well, as the coyote population grows, it needs to move somewhere. And now it's pretty routine to see coyotes wandering the suburbs where I live. And we're a good couple miles away from the mountains. In terms of a wolf pack, a couple miles is nothing. But we are able to do these things. Again, that's kind of the triumph of man, that we could hunt something to the point of extinction and then bring it back. We did it with the California condor. We've done it with lots of other animals. But the wolf one is a really funny debate to look at the comment section, because it is such a gut reaction to think, oh yeah, we need to save the wolves, until you realize how dangerous wolves are. I've had to deal with a pack of feral dogs before. And that was not fun, and they ain't wolves. Wolves are much bigger. Wolves are not coyotes, okay? Coyotes, they will run from you. All right? Wolves will freaking eat your face. But anyhow, yeah, it's just another one of those articles that interests me. So, my daughter and her husband have gotten into a health food kick lately, and they're trying to buy juices, and I was mentioning, you should buy the frozen concentrate because it's cheaper. That's how I was raised. Remember those things? You would unwrap the can, you plop the big cylinder into like a pitcher, add some water, and stir it up. It's disappearing. Well, not entirely disappearing, but one line is disappearing. Wow, I must have loaded some stickers into my printer because his last page is on a sticker. But after 80 years, Minute Maid is discontinuing all of their frozen concentrates. The orange juice, the lemonade, the limeade, the pink lemonade, and the raspberry lemonade. And it's funny because in the article they talk about, to modern shoppers, a frozen block of concentrated juice feels processed, while a carton feels more natural. That is crazy talk, all right? In the comment section, though, what was interesting was just the resilience, just not the resilience, but just the way people view this. There were people who were talking about, well, I haven't had it in a while, but I have fond memories of it. But my favorite was talking about the limeade disappearing and how it makes beautiful margaritas. It's interesting what we choose to focus on, isn't it? I don't know. There's still lots of frozen juices out there, but Minute Maid, which is owned by Coca-Cola, is going away. And it's the end of a legacy. And it's another thing that I've watched disappear, and I don't really think it was a good idea. Just to close this out, I was one of those guys who, I used to be really into Survivor. And what I would do is I would record Survivor on 2 different VCRs. And about halfway, it started at 8 o'clock, so about 8:30, I would pop one tape out and start watching Survivor so I could fast forward through the commercials. And once that was done, I'd grab the other tape, fast forward to about halfway through it, and watch the rest of it and fast forward through all of the commercials. And then for a while I was using TiVo, and I would do sort of the same thing. TiVo allowed you to fast forward through it, but sometimes I would just dump the raw file off there, edit out the commercials. And we had won in the commercial battle. Most of us didn't even have to see commercials anymore. And I know that's how people make money, and they need commercials and blah, 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 all that. I feel the same thing about AM radio. I feel bad every time I switch between stations at commercial breaks. But the truth of the matter is that the whole commercial base economy of television, it just really feeds the commercialism of America. Yeah, I don't know how this went. I don't feel like it went really well, but I appreciate you being here. I want to bring more stories like this because the world we live in right now is just cuckoo crazy when you view it always through a political lens. So, let's maybe take a couple days away from politics. Let's not look at it anymore and try to just reflect on being a better human. And maybe if we all try to be a better human, maybe we'll start demanding more of fellow humans. And maybe we can change how we view politics and we get away from the tribes. Because we're humans. We have accomplished incredible things. Nobody else on this planet has ever reached the moon. I don't know. I really do appreciate you. If you're still here, tell me how it went. Be brutal. I want to know feedback. I want to get better. But anyhow, I'm Kid Copious. I'm Purple State Party, and so are you. Love one another. Keep on grinding. And, just turn off the CNN and the Fox News. Put on some music. Dance it out.